best could be. I haven't seen my Super Nintendo since 2003. That's alright, I don't mind. I've got a Switch in the old switcheroo. My friend Mike and Jaymo too.
Welcome back to the Old SwitchAroo, where we're talking gaming retro with Mike and Jaymo.
I'm Mike.
And I'm Jaymo.
We're on break from full episodes before we start season 3, so this is a return of a feature that we call the Old SwitchAroo Lite Switch. Instead of our normal focus on the over 250 retro games available on Nintendo Switch Online, today we'll be talking a bit about what gaming and gaming-related stuff we've been up to during the break. Subscribe or follow us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, or wherever you listen to make sure you're ready for when season 3 starts.
Gonna be the best season yet.
So I think the best spot to start is something that's still Nintendo Switch subscriptions, which is Nintendo Music, which they've just released.
Yeah. Have you checked it out?
I have. Have you checked it out?
I thought this was such a silly idea. And it's like there's a lot of memes about it of like, of course we want Nintendo Switch 2 news, and of course Nintendo gives us this instead. They keep having these weird announcements, and they do the thing to build up hype. They make an announcement of the announcement so everyone tunes in. It's like, it's an alarm clock. It's a Spotify service, kind of. But once the snark was aside, I have very quickly fallen in love with this app. What's your opinion of it?
I mean, I would say I was expecting you to enjoy this for a reason I'll get to in a moment.
Yeah.
My initial response to it is this feels like a very neat prototype.
Right. Yeah.
And I say that specifically because just the amount of content there is not what I expect, or it's not what it really needs to sustain itself.
Yeah.
Because it's very selective in what's there. So actually, like, one of the things that seems to have a lot of music there is Splatoon.
Yeah.
Which is why I'm like, Jeremy is going to be loving this.
It's funny though, because Splatoon is very tied to its music. Its most famous characters are the DJs and performers that are really the narrators of the multiplayer experience, right? And so every game has had a lot of musical tracks, and the matches are set to the length of songs, and I that's not the one I've been going to most. I have become very addicted, or not even addiction. Addicted is not the right word because it's such a positive experience. I've been putting on the
Addiction
Animal
is often
Crossing.
positive.
Well, okay, it has a negative, as an English teacher, it has a negative connotation, all right? But having Animal Crossing as ambient music has actually been kind of life-changing for me, because by far, and my students can tell you this, the thing I'm worst at as a teacher is grading, and grading like on a consistent basis. And I always try to give feedback whenever I can, but it takes a long time. It's easily my least favorite thing about teaching. What did you have any trouble grading? You used to teach college.
Yeah, so I think when I graded at CSUN, it was fairly manageable, I think, because so all the grading I did was in labs. So you
Yeah.
really just had like a here's your end results. And at CSUN, those were really designed to be pretty quick to go through.
Yeah.
And it's just checking relatively short answers. When I was at Vanderbilt, they were much lengthier things, and it took forever. And eventually we cut it down to these are the questions we grade because those are questions that they could be tested on.
Right.
So that we're not going to test you on things we didn't bother to grade, so that if you were wrong on that, it doesn't come up.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of teachers grade like that, but like for me, it's also grades are on some indirect level kind of a behavior management thing, because if kids believe that everything they're doing is contributing towards their grade going up or down, you get a lot more buy-in from students. So I know grading is important. I just hate doing it. It's like it's not the fun part for me. The fun part is the song and dance and the learning with the kids. So I've been putting on Animal Crossing ambient music while I do my grades and while I tidy up. And it's crazy because you have not played Animal Crossing, correct?
I have not.
What's amazing about that game is that it's like a life sim, but through this really charming presentation, these perfect sound effects, and this chef's kiss of ambient music, it makes the most tedious things really enjoyable. Like moving furniture and watering plants is really fun in Animal Crossing. Any Animal Crossing fan, Lisa, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It's just this endorphin machine. So having the music while doing tasks I normally dread, it's really been a big quality of life improvement for me because my brain's going, oh yeah, Animal Crossing was full of tedium that was actually not so bad, and this is not so bad.
Or have you just been
Um,
sticking with like on a per game basis, or have you tried like their here's a mood that we have
I
music
I
for?
I tried my first mood today. I did. It was like building up or hyping up or something, and it was a
Getting
bunch of like
ready,
maybe it was getting ready. Maybe I should just pull it up and see if I
warming
can.
up.
Yeah, I think it was warming up. Yeah.
I was playing that
And
before this.
I was trying to do it while doing the dishes, and I was like, okay, this kind of added a little urgency to everything. Powering up is the one I tried today. There have been some kind of strange misses though, like Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. I was really excited to play those, but they're so high energy that like unless you're working out or something, it often I don't think is the best choice. What do you think of the logo? On the iPhone, the Apple the logo is just like a red square with just like a white music note, and it seems so basic, but
Yeah,
I don't know, kind of growing on me. What do you think of it?
I mean, I hadn't thought too much about it. That is
About it?
really a statement in just how confident Nintendo is on red and white being their branding colors.
Yeah, yeah, because it's just a music note. There's nothing else special about it,
Yeah,
but it is kind of a flex. So like, yeah, you know what you're getting.
yeah. No, I think
Um,
it. So like a lot of those things are interesting things, or to some extent, the oh, here's a playlist for a character.
yeah.
It just feels like there's not enough there yet.
I yes,
And it's this,
100%.
yeah, which feels very Nintendo. Like, well, we made a thing. We have a lot, but we've only put some of it here. And it's like,
I hope they
please speed this up.
I hope they stick with it
Yeah.
because there's a lot of cool things you could do. Number one thing, and I don't think they'll ever do this because they're trying to curate such a game experience, but one of my favorite features of the original Xbox, and I believe the Xbox 360, but I know the original Xbox is that you could burn your own music CDs into the hard drive or onto the system memory, I should say, and then you could play your own custom music over the game you were playing. So like for Tony Hawk Pro Skater, we would mute the in-game music and like we'd be skating around to Evangelion. And yes, I know you could just play it from another device and mute it. I understand that, but there is something special about when it's coming from your console and you can pause the game and the music stops too. Like I miss it. I miss that. And they could do that, they could have this be built into the Switch 2 architecture and let you listen to whatever you wanted to do while you were doing whatever else you wanted to do. But they desperately need a PC version of this. I feel like they're avoiding it because they don't want a bunch of copyright strikes and people getting easy access to use their music for whatever. But like I want to be able to share playlists I've made, my Animal Crossing ambient playlist. I've selected certain things that are good for grading, and everyone listening to this should be able to download JMO's, Nintendo Music playlist. That's such a basic feature of music players these days. So you're right. It's prototypical Nintendo because we're late to the party and we're missing a lot of features other people have already figured out.
And it's just when it's not that much music, it kind of does mess with like a you can select from anything of these things we have. And so like I've seen a lot of people being like, I like this, but why is this game not in there? And it's not like people are picking things that are where it's like it was on Nintendo, but it was a Nintendo thing. Like I'm seeing Nintendo made games where people
Yeah.
are like, why isn't that music included? So it's definitely I want to see that grow quickly with adding music there. Although I one of the neat things that I did stumble upon, and I don't remember how I found it, is it will also just show you like because they're trying to sort of get it to match up to your game experience. So one thing is you can mark games as spoiler that you do not want to hear that music because you're going to play that game, which is neat. Like
Yeah.
I don't care, but it does remind me. I don't care in general, but it does remind me of like one of the most famous people getting spoiled on Star Wars.
Qui-Gon's noble end.
Qui-Gon's Noble End on a soundtrack they released before Phantom Menace came out, and everyone's like, "Well, that can only mean so many things."
Oh
Um,
my gosh, that's hilarious. Another feature that felt kind of unique to Nintendo Music that I hadn't seen before is instead of just having a loop option, they have this extend option. And what that means is that if you think about video game music and you're in a level, well-designed video game music does loop, but not at a noticeable point. It kind of blends so that it's always playing and you're like, oh, those chords again. But you're not really aware of how many times it's played, right? They do that with this, where they have it kind of seamlessly loop. So like with Animal Crossing, I've made a playlist, but I've also just picked one song for 45 minutes and it's magnificent. It's so cool.
it's impressive.
Yeah, I just thought,
The other thing it's doing that I thought was really cool, um, and it showed for me how really useful this is in a sense, was it also has a section that's like, hey, here's music from the games you've played.
oh, does it keep track through the Nintendo Switch app?
It knows what you've played through Nintendo Switch. And what's super cool about this is it's not just like, it would be one thing if it had just given me like, here's, Splatoon 3 and the two other like separately purchased Nintendo games I've played that have music on there. It was also showing me various things from the Nintendo Switch Online catalog, individual games that I've played.
That's cool.
Yeah,
That is cool.
I was really surprised that I didn't think that it would bother to like to break down what in the retro games that I played. I was
Yeah,
expecting it would just be the individual games I had purchased that are modern games. Like Mario Kart 8. Yeah, it knows that I played that. I was very surprised to see that it also suggested various older games where it's just a Nintendo Switch Online, because I thought it was just going to count it as you played Nintendo Switch Online N64 or whatever and not keep track of what for this.
but what's
So that was really cool.
fascinating about what you just discovered is that I was always under the impression that the Nintendo Switch. Now, this is crazy because we are like, as far as I know, the only Nintendo Switch online podcast, okay, devoted to going through all of these. But I was always under the impression that all of Nintendo Switch Online's Super Nintendo games, for example, were categorized as one app and that they wouldn't have the data on individual games we're selecting, which infuriates me because I feel like if they can do this, they also have to be able to let me have customized controls per retro game.
Man, I knew that's where that was going.
Right? Right?
Yeah.
I've been playing Turok for season 3 because I think we'll probably get to it, or I hope we do, because we haven't done a first person shooter yet. Um, and the control sticks are swapped. You gotta move with the right and aim with the left, and it's so disorienting. I've gotten used to it, but I should be able to do that easily. But also, how cool would it be if Switch 2, or even, the current Switch, gets a Nintendo Music app and you can, while playing a game, press a button combination to add the song that's in the background to a playlist, right? Like, oh, this is a cool Splatoon song. Press the two back trigger buttons, boom, and it's automatically added to the playlist for me to listen to later. That would be so freaking cool. Nintendo, are you listening? Mike and I are both like, like you can afford us, okay?
Yeah.
These are good ideas. So can I talk about a game I've been playing?
Yeah, let's go on to something you've been playing.
Yeah, I have been playing Black Ops 6 on my Xbox, and I really like Call of Duty, but I'm not usually very good at them. And the Black Ops series has always kind of been the exception because you in multiplayer fights you die a lot faster. It's not like Halo where you have like these recharging shields. Some Call of Duties kind of feel like that sometimes. But it's called like time to death, I think is the term. I'm not a Call of Duty expert by any means, but like it's like the amount of seconds that pass between once you start shooting at somebody and once they're actually down. And most Call of Duty, it's a couple of seconds. In Black Ops 6, it's like half a second. So it feels almost like kind of Area 51, like light gun shooters. I'm like bam, 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 oh, I'm down. But you always get back in the match really, really quickly. You don't play Call of Duty. You're as far as like shooter multiplayer, you're pretty much exclusively a Halo kid, right?
And there's a bit of Quake.
Oh, I didn't know you ever played Quake, like on the PC.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hope we get Quake 64 eventually. for our Nintendo Switch Online catalog. Like that's kind of a fun game. My here's something. Okay, if you're listening to this and you know about this, you have to give a like or a comment. There was a Quake mod that I adored as a teen called X-Men Ravages of Apocalypse. I don't know if you can open another tab and I can look this up while I'm talking about it. It's bonkers because it's Quake, but all of the enemies are clones of your beloved X-Men and you kill them in really graphic ways. So like you can scorch a clone of Gambit and leave behind just a cindering skeleton, or like you can hit Iceman with a rocket launcher and watch his bloody parts fly apart, but it's okay because they're just clones. And it's this really creepy, like clone lives don't matter kind of thing. Did you find it?
I did. I've done a quick image search, and
It's
this looks more like them than I expected it to. I don't,
right.
or I guess in my head when you mentioned this, what it reminded me of was that like, or I guess, and this is me forgetting what kind of game this is it reminded me of like StarCraft used to have special maps where the characters would be like everyone's been rethemed to Lord of the Rings, but it's all still the same characters.
Yeah,
Where
it's the same sprites.
yeah. So I hadn't really thought about just how much they would redesign characters. Like, oh yeah, no, that totally looks like Cyclops.
Yeah, it's just Cyclops, and you're hitting him with a shotgun, and he falls in half. It's just like what? Like I think Disney would be a bit more protective of its IP. But back to Black Ops 6 though. I'm really enjoying a lot of the improvements it's made. That's the Call of Duty with zombies. And it's like there's two ways to play it. One is a you and friends against a horde of zombies. They're just computer enemies. But my favorite mode is called Infected, where the match starts, one player is a zombie, and if they kill a player, they become a zombie. And it's just like the zombie side wins when all the humans are dead, and then the humans have to survive a certain amount of time. And it's just super hectic. It's on Game Pass, which is a first for Call of Duty. And it's crazy because like the Game Pass subscriptions like jumped like 600% or something crazy. But you can play Xbox games on your PC if you subscribe to Game Pass. And it's interesting because like Sony and Microsoft are kind of moving away from you needing to own their physical consoles. They've recently had that big advertising campaign of this is an Xbox and this is an Xbox. And have you seen what you know what I'm talking
I
about? Have you
haven't
seen
seen
those
this now.
memes? Yeah, it's this new push where like Microsoft wants to have anything that has streaming capabilities let you play Xbox games. Like connect your controller to the TV and just play. And PlayStation just announced that it's PlayStation Portal, which is the handheld PlayStation 5, but you had to it was basically like the Wii U's controller. Remember the Wii U controller, Mike?
I don't think I ever even saw a Wii U.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, we weren't friends back then. There's a black spot and there's a blind spot of a few years there. That's really funny. My Wii U years were Mikeless. There's some crazy games we should have played on there. My favorite one of use of the gamepad. So, but you know of it. You know how the concept, right?
Honestly, no.
Oh, dang. I wish I hadn't sold it. The Wii U's big innovation was that its controller had its own screen and it could render and display things separate from one another. So you could do a multiplayer game, and instead of just screen watching each other, if one player turned around and faced the other direction, now everyone has their own screen, but it's all running off the one Wii U. Most games had it so like you could manage your inventory on the screen on your controller. But my favorite one was Zombie U, and it was this zombie survival game where one player had the gamepad and was essentially like the game master and dropping enemies and traps while the player on the TV was running around trying to survive the chaos that the person was causing. It was pretty cool. But so PlayStation has a thing like that for PlayStation 5 called the PlayStation Portal. And they just announced that if you subscribe to their PlayStation, whatever their version of Game Pass is, you don't need a PlayStation. You can just play it directly off the portal. So I don't know. What do you feel about like the deletion of consoles and everything just kind of being streamed directly from television? That makes me kind of sad.
I mean, I guess there's an element of, to me, I've always thought of consoles as multiplayer gaming
Yeah.
for the most part. And that just reflects that, like, that was how I played them was at people's houses. So it was generally multiplayer because it's weird to go over to someone's house and then just play a single player game. I
Yeah.
did it, but it's definitely a different experience when
Sonic Spinball.
mostly that. Um, but so that's a different experience where you're used to like, okay, the stuff I played on N64 was predominantly, GoldenEye and Mario Kart,
Yeah.
for example. The stuff I knew from Sonic 2 was the multiplayer experience for the most part.
Yeah.
So from that, I've always kind of thought of PCs as more single player gaming and consoles as multiplayer gaming. So in that sense, it feels weird to get away from it, but that's much more reflective of how I approach consoles.
Yeah. And it does lead to a potentially cool future where like anyone who has a smart TV, like people can just bring their controllers or, just have a controller in the car. I'm like, oh, I played this cool game. Oh, let me boot it up. You just sign in on their smart TV and now you're playing the Xbox game you loved, regardless of if they have the Xbox or not.
It weirdly
Like,
reminds me of, do you remember the era where like you could go if you were at a slightly nicer, like a proper hotel, not like a Motel 6, where like the TV
oh,
would have games.
yes, they would have a Nintendo 64 controller sometimes and it was super dope.
I don't even like I remember like an earlier stage of that, but it was like an early-ish to mid 90s thing would be like, oh, we can play games on this TV. This is amazing.
Yeah,
Um,
and it was like $15 for an hour, but you kind of had a Nintendo Switch online menu of stuff to choose from.
yeah, and then that like at
That's
some point they stopped because everyone's like, we just got a phone. Why are we doing this?
yeah, yeah. But I feel like that could, I mean, that's what Nintendo Switch Online should be. The retro games that we play should not be tied to the Switch. Nintendo Switch Online should be an app on, and Nintendo, come on, come on. Look at all the good ideas Mike and I have. Get us on board.
Yeah,
We'll
and
sell
I think
out.
the other fun thing just from the PC gamer side of things is I think like things like console exclusivity, which kind of seem to be fading for the most part,
Yeah.
is also one of those deals where I think with PC, because it's so easy to produce a game for PC, like there's no, you didn't have we have to manufacture stuff specifically for a console, which I think is why like I haven't gotten to it yet, but there's a ton of people who are like, oh, I would really like to check out Kingdom Hearts, but it's only available on PlayStation. And the PC community was just like, yeah, well, wait on that. To the point that I think it came out on like the Epic Game Store first. And it was like, oh, wait for this to be on Steam. There's not it feels like there's not a sense of urgency for a lot of that, which
Yeah.
just comes with there's so many options and you're not stuck to, you could play old games easier in that kind of format because it
Right.
wasn't like it wasn't well, it wasn't released for this version of the console. So I think that has shaped why I'm a lot less eager on games often of like, oh, it's just out, I need to play this for the
Yeah.
most part because I'm like, it's not going anywhere.
Right.
If I just
Uh,
wait, all that happens is I'm going to get it cheaper.
and I think that just comes with being adult gamers. Like, I just feel like I had more free time when I was younger.
I think I
Um,
was even had a fair chunk of that then as well.
yeah.
And I think because I think it's PC gaming provides it from a different perspective.
Yeah. So Black Ops 6, though, more accessible than it's ever been. What else have you been playing?
I timed that well. So the other thing I've been playing, and this is taking a lot of my time, um, is Vampire Survivors, which was great when I first checked that out. Um, Actually, a great example, available on anything. I picked it up on PC.
I have it on Switch.
Is they recently because they've just been adding expansions to that.
Yeah, there's been like 4 or 5 at this point.
Yeah, so they a while back they added in Among Us, which I've never played, and they added in Contra,
Oh, that's dope.
and so yeah, it was basically because the general gist of it is sort of a Castlevania inspired you are having to face giant bats and stuff, and not really much
Yeah,
in the way of vampires, but giant bats, and and it's generally it's a roguelite, so it's basically, can you last half an hour on a map? At which point it will end. But getting to that half an hour is the challenge.
Yeah,
And
and it's all from top down. You're surviving like the amount of enemies that come at you in the later stages of like a round are truly breathtaking.
oh yeah, no, it is great, and since all you're doing is moving, all the weapons are automatic, and so it's just moving around, which makes it a fairly easy to play. And it wasn't until we did the Castlevania episode that then I went, oh my gosh, a whole lot of things that I'm used to as Vampire Survivor things are totally just Castlevania things that I didn't
Right.
realize.
Did you-
So with that in mind, where I'm like, oh wow, this is a lot of Castlevania I didn't expect. They did a Castlevania, or it's ode to Castlevania, that is a whole bunch of Castlevania characters, and the whole map is it's interesting because it actually has 2D elements to it.
Huh.
So you'll be moving around in this, so most of it is you have, you know, you're looking at the ground, you're moving around it, going between rooms and stuff. But it actually has a couple bits that you'll go into, like you'll go through a door and it will change it so that now it is a 2D game for that room.
It was like a mini game almost.
Yeah, and it's usually like there's a boss in there or something, because this is added in. Not all of the Vampire Survivor maps do this, but the Castlevania one does this, which is that there's a whole lot of individual bosses around there. And like the first boss you get to is the giant bat from the Castlevania games. Like as you're going through it, it is, there is the clock tower that
Right.
we went through. And so there's bits where I'm like, I recognize where I am on at least parts of this, because some of those are such heavy through lines through Castlevania that I'm like, I know I'm recognizing this. Also really neat is because again, it starts off with like you have to unlock all the characters there through various things. And like the second one I unlocked, and I think this is the first time this character has been back in a game, period. Sonia Belmont's back.
Castlevania Legends represent.
Yeah, like I went and checked. It's like this. It's basically like the previous time Sonia Belmont appeared was Castlevania Legends, I think.
That's wild. It actually makes me really happy because Konami could have sued Vampire Survivors for how visually similar it is. Like I imagine.
I don't think they could have.
Really?
I think there's enough that's different in gameplay, and there's enough that is clear. There's visual inspiration, but I mean, it's the same reason why Castlevania wasn't able to sue, Hammer, or wasn't able to get sued by Hammer Films.
Yeah, we didn't invent Dracula.
Yeah.
But so okay, so let's say they even couldn't sue. For these two studios to make a collaboration together.
Yeah.
I think that's just a really cool moment of like, Konami understanding its audience, which has not been typical for Konami. They've been hard to love at moments. So this is pretty cool. And I might have to download that now that I know that there's 2D elements.
It is super neat. I'm actually in the process of trying to unlock everything so that I can get the second half of the map. Because I think this is the only one that I played where like you find the map and it's only a partial map of the level. And I need the second half of the map to go figure out some other junk in there. Like I'm trying to work my way through. Like I've reached the extent of what I can get. I have to unlock other characters and do other certain, beat this boss with this character kind of stuff to continue to unlock things. Because there's a bunch of extra weapons and stuff. Good Lord, this thing has so many whips. I have like 7 different whips unlocked now. Because every
whip guy,
every character just has their own whip. It's just
it's Castlevania.
Yeah.
Have you checked out the multiplayer mode, the couch co-op mode of Vampire Survivors?
I have not at all. Like I know that it has it. I just haven't explored it at all.
It's really good because Vampire Survivors being it's not even a 1-button game, it's a no button game. You just basically move the joystick, but so it's a really good couch co-op game for like a house party because you can have full conversations, and last a while. And then the moments of chaos when things get really close, it's kind of a bonding experience.
I
We
did,
definitely got to try it
I
sometime.
did. I was questioned whether that counts as playing at this point because I think I was trying. So I finally have unlocked. There is an endless mode where at the end
Ooh,
of half an hour, instead of basically an inevitable death or you win situation, it basically just starts back over to the same pattern of enemies.
but you had enough weapons and artifacts that they couldn't touch you.
Yeah, that I had enough to survive, and then and then it just kind of reset, and I was just increasingly powering up. And I was this was that there's a couple characters that you have to get to 100,000 enemies killed in one run, and just that is not possible in half an hour.
Yeah.
It takes like 45 minutes to an hour. And at some point, Kat looked over and just like, does this count as playing the game still? Because it had been like 10 minutes since I touched the computer because it's just sitting there with all kinds of colors flashing around as I'm just obliterating anything as soon as it comes in to
Right.
screen. And it's like,
But you didn't
yeah,
have to move. You didn't have
yeah,
to move.
didn't have to move at all.
That's like the Luigi wins by doing nothing meme, but you were Luigi.
Yeah, because it was just like, well, and my logic was like, I had to do a lot of work to get the right build for this to happen. So
Yeah.
there was strategy earlier. This is the payoff. Is I'm just watching the screen with nonstop explosions.
Yeah.
So yeah, it
Um,
has been great fun. I think I've recently passed 100 hours in Vampire Survivors, and I actually think I may 100% the achievements in that game
wow.
in the next month or two because I think I'm down to stuff that's reasonable and just sort of the gradual accumulation of strength and resources in there is enough now that like I'm at a point where I almost always reach like the 30-minute mark
Yeah.
on stuff. So
Well, you if you get that last achievement, you'll have to live stream it. That'll be fun. You should.
I mean I don't even know what that last achievement's gonna be necessarily.
Yeah. Speaking of last achievements, can I tell you one more thing I've been playing?
Yes, go for it.
Jackie, my lovely wife, got me a MetaQuest 3S for my birthday this year, and it is so cool. I love virtual reality. Are you a fan? Have you messed with it?
Um, like I think just in general, I'm not too much of a fan. I definitely have never messed with the MetaQuest.
Okay. Well, it's really neat because like the visor uses lasers to scan the room and give you an actual space of like, okay, you can actually physically move in this amount of space. And when you get too close to it, you get a little warning. It says, "Hey, idiot, back up. You're about to walk into the fireplace." um, but there's
Is
this
it
game series. Go ahead.
is it powered off of something else? Like
Mm-mm.
you okay, so it's all contained within the what you're wearing.
Yes, yes, that was the appeal because it's how it was affordable. I mean, a good VR rig can run you $1,000, honestly, but this one, with like the kind of low memory model, I think it was like 300, which still is a lot in today's economy. But I have been wanting one for a long time, and the my favorite game so far is called Thrill of the Fight. There was the original one, and then they just released the multiplayer only sequel. They're going to add single player content, I think, but it's a boxing game, and you are just given a small boxing ring that they scan your living room to create, and you're just throwing actual punches and actual hooks and deflecting punches by holding your gloves up. I mean, it is exactly how you'd want virtual reality boxing to work. And I beat the first game and then just today picked up the sequel, and I'm fighting actual people. And I've even been in a fight, Mike. I've never been in like a legit fight. Like I've smacked my brothers around, but I've never like gotten into it with a stranger. Have you?
No, like I mean I've been hit, but that's a very different thing.
Right. Yeah. You've never like thrown hands back. I think that I
Yeah.
qualify as that too. But the thrill of actually throwing hands with a real life person and the devastation of losing two times in a row to like what I'm pretty sure were little kids. Very upsetting. But I got my first victory today, and I'm a little embarrassed at the adrenaline I got realizing I was really clobbering somebody. I'm a lover, Mike. I'm not a fighter, but when I play Thrill the Fight too, listen, if you
Okay,
if you,
wait. So you mean this is against real people in the sense of like it's multiplayer?
It's so the original was not multiplayer; it was single player only. The sequel has been released at a reduced price, and all they have running is the multiplayer features.
Okay.
But
I
yes,
took
there.
real people to mean like they've put like the designs of who you're fighting are real people, not that you're
Sorry,
okay.
I should clarify. No, these are multiplayer opponents. So this is me swinging at someone who is in Orange County in their living room swinging at me. And it's really crazy because since it's virtual reality, it's mimicking all your real moves. Like the second guy who beat me in the final round put one hand behind his back and beat me one-handed. And I was just like, "Oh my God." And then one of the other ones blew me a kiss after I was lost. So listen, I needed that third round win. My ego really needed it, but it's just wild. It's a wild experience to get physically tired and be out of breath while playing video games. I don't know. I love blending exercise and gaming, so I've really loved it. Yeah, it's been fun. Um, does that wrap it up?
I think so, unless you had any other games that you've been playing on that.
I mean, I could want me to talk about another one. I mean, I could talk
Yeah,
about another one,
let's
but
talk about one more.
so, the other big game has been Blade and Sorcery Nomad, which is a kind of Dark Souls aesthetic RPG game, but it's fully physics based. So, you actually have to wrap your hand around the sword to grab it, and you actually have to put things in your holsters. But because it's an entirely physics based game, you can get really creative with problem solving. Like if you can grab onto the wall and there's even the slightest little edge to it, you can kind of parkour your way up the walls and climb your way around levels. And it's really dizzying, but like in a realistic way. Cause like I'm on top of a building now that I had to climb up one rung at a time. But it's the most immersive game I've played so far. Do you get motion sickness when you do VR?
I don't think so. I think it's just not. I think it's one of those deals that it's just to me it's a game, so I'm not as worried about the graphics have never been a selling point for it. I think this is probably the same deal that there are very few 3D movies that I think are worth it to
Mm,
me because to me it's like it's a movie and you can get the effect out of 2D or I can feel immersed by something that's not realistic.
yeah. Yeah.
So the extra things just tend to be if I notice them, it's because something's not going well.
Well, but it's funny you brought up, 3D movies because Jackie and I saw Wicked with Colleen. She's going to be on season 3 at some point, and we saw it at Screen X. Have you seen a movie in Screen X yet?
I haven't. I didn't know that was a thing until recently. I saw Twisters in 4DX, and that was absolutely amazing.
Yeah, with the moving seats and the wind and everything.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm sad I missed out on that one. But Screen X, for those who haven't heard of it, it's ultra widescreen to the point that the scene has been extended on the walls of the theater. And in Wicked, it's really fun because every time there's a song, the screens go, it's not the entire movie, it's most of the movie. But the audience would always get hyped because when the music kicks in and a new song is starting, the projectors on the wall kick in, and now as long as you're not seated too far back, you feel like you're sitting in the scene, because in your peripheral vision, now you're seeing the surroundings of wherever they filmed that scene, but with no glasses, no
I think
gimmicky
Kung Fu
3D stuff.
Panda at Universal does that.
It does. Yeah. Yeah. But I believe though it's 3D screens on each side of you and you can actually look all around. That's not the case for this one, but and also the seats in a Screen X theater go all the way back, so you can just fully recline and not see the row in front of you. Because I hate when I see glowing cell phones in front of me, ruins my time every time. So, hey Regal, you listening? Screen X. I'm the only one talking about it. It's pretty cool. But what was my point though? Yeah, so that's why you're not really into VR, but Blade and Sorcery Nomad, I really recommend for anyone who likes Dark Souls,
Is it
because
story based or more exploration?
it's not much story. It's mostly exploration combat, but to actually be crawling into a dark dungeon and seeing glowing crystals on the wall and like being nervous. I'm like peeking around the corner because I'm worried there's going to be a bandit around the corner and like to go to a fantasy world. And the graphics I think have gotten a lot better since you maybe last tried VR, but they are immersive enough that it's a genuine thrill. So I'm excited to keep going. It's just a little creepy sometimes though because like fully physics based means that like you're knocking down enemies and they're struggling to get back up because the, polygon rigged skeleton needs to get its footing and pull itself up. So obviously you're knocking them back down because you're in combat. But I've never felt the feeling of like being vindictive towards my video game enemies. I don't know. I know sometimes people do that in like Grand Theft Auto and I guess Mortal Kombat, but it I haven't had my proudest moments while playing. I'll just leave it at that. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think that covers all that we're going to talk about for what we've been playing lately and other gaming related things. So until next time, please remember to like, follow, or subscribe to the Old Switcheroo and rate or review the show wherever you get your podcasts. You can also visit www.theoldswitcharoo.com to find all our social media links, and we'd love to hear what you thought of this episode or what you're hoping to hear about in future episodes.
And be sure to let us know what Nintendo music tracks you like. Leave a comment. What's your ambient Nintendo music go-to track? Love to hear about it.
The next line's yours.
Oh, sure is. You know what? As always, thanks for listening to the Old Switcheroo, where we've been talking gaming retro with Mike and Jaymo.
I've been Mike.
And I've been Jaymo.
Game on, everyone.
Yeah.